inviting to the stage Mrs. Ala Skorik. Ala is responsible for the Northeast Regional Branch, and her team specializes on the topics of human rights, recovering and investigation of war crimes. Here you are.
Thank you, everybody. I'm happy to see you, and I want to say thank you for all of you who decided to stay with us and to listen to our stories. Actually, the war forced us to move faster. Nowadays, we understand what evil is look like, and sometimes even how to manage with it. We know that we can win, but we can win together, and all of you can help us to do it. We can do it together for sure. I want to share with you my experience how to manage with the war and how to organize the workflow and actually the media under the siege, for example, near the active war actions, for example. My name is Ala Skorik, and I'm responsible for a filia that is located not far from Russia, near the Russia and Belarus, actually, 100 kilometers from Belarus and 100 kilometers from Russia, both countries. So this is the picture of 24th of February 2022, and you can see that during the day, from the morning to the evening, Russian troops could go through 100 kilometers. They were really close to my city, maybe 7 kilometers to my city. All of us wake up early in the morning. We could hear some shellings, shootings. We could just hear that the war started, actually. And we could understand that we need to do something with it. Now I'm responsible not only for Chernihiv, but for Sumy and Poltava. Sumy is also on the border with active war actions. So I just want to show you the map for you to understand that we are on the north, very close to Russia. And here you can see also a small river that divides Chernihiv from Kyiv, and that is very important to understand because it made a lot with our logistic and organization of work of journalists. This is the picture, my office on the 24th of February. My office and me, we also tried to prepare somehow to the war. We understood that something is going on. Maybe we can have some kind of aggression or invasion. I talked to everybody in the team, 60 people. To everybody, to cameramen, to journalists, to some technical staff. What are you going to do? Whether you are going to live somewhere in Ukraine, to the western part of Ukraine, whether you are going to go abroad. Are you going to quit, for example, or are you going to stay in the profession? What are you going to do? What will be your next steps? And, nowadays I understand that that's impossible to predict, the behavior of people. It's impossible to predict, because in the morning on the 24th of February, I saw different situation. People, those who were sure that they will stay in the profession, they quitted. And they just escaped. And people who told me that I'm not sure, maybe I will be scared, I don't know. They were very active and they made a lot of work during this period of time. I don't know how it works. It's psychology. But we can't predict, we can't do a perfect plan. That means that we really need to plan. We really need to have a plan. But in the other case, we need to have very quick decision to change everything. In the other case, no way to survive. This is a really funny picture. You can see the manager of our media and the producer, cameraman and journalist. They were sitting in the corridor. It was first year alum. And actually, they choose a place near the door with this glass. This was a really stupid decision. But it was the first day we faced the war, actually, and shootings. A really stupid decision. Then we understood that, for example, a sticky type is a very important thing in a newsroom. We used everything. just to do something with our windows and doors, to organize somehow some safe place, not safe, but at least something. And actually, this is simple example, but how we used to work regularly before the invasion. We had everyday TV news program in the evening and in the day. Radio news programs, regular, everyday talkings. We had a website, social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, and Viber. So just imagine situation in the morning. A lot of people are going to leave and escape. Some people are going to stay in the base ground, and it's okay because we understand that it's about safety. How to produce TV news show. Anyway, you need to have a representative in good clothes, with a makeup, with hairdo, without water and electricity, just imagine, without some possibility to find some cosmetics and something like that. You need a lot of stuff, you need light, you need some technical stuff. Who will edit this video, who will make this graphic, and all these things. That's impossible. And anyway, how do you think your audience will wait till the evening just to find out the information about the city? No way. They need information just right now. And this information is changing. Actually, my media was already was on this reform. We were moving from traditional media to digitalized media. But the war forced us to do it faster. So in the first day, we decided that we need to close our television, because we understood that our audience is actually on the base ground. They do not spend their time in the apartment because it is too scary. In the base ground, we do not have television. In the base ground, we usually have some radio on batteries and my mobile phones, maybe tablets. So we do not need maybe television right now. We can take video, make some stories, and give it to Kyiv, Lviv, and some other regions for them to edit and to broadcast. But for us, it was not so important. We need to find some information and give it right now. So in the period when Chernihiv was surrounded from everywhere, Chernihiv was under the siege but not under the occupation, we decided that it's enough to have 2 journalists and 2 cameramen inside Chernihiv. That was quite enough. They worked day after day because one day this team needed, for example, some time to find food, find water, to charge equipment, to wash hair, to find medicines, for example, because it was a problem. To find food, to find bread, it was a problem. The next day, another team is on the field. They are working, taking video, and another team are looking for food, for water, for electricity, and charging their equipment. And that was quite enough for us to make videos because our team, our media, was the only one in Chernihiv who could still work in Chernihiv. It was impossible for other media to get to Chernihiv because of the river. Bridges were blown up. And the only one way to get to Chernihiv was by boat. And different teams from, for example, from the New York Times, they tried to get to Chernihiv and they were shot on the way. Before taking a boat, for example, to Chernihiv, and they asked me a lot, Allah, please help us somehow to find the way to get to Chernihiv. It was very important to journalists to find this way because it was impossible. And when it's impossible, it's very necessary to get. That's why the work of our team was so important, and the value of this video was very important. For you to understand how it was not easy to deliver this video to Kyiv and to Lviv and to some other countries, because For journalists and cameramen to walk, they need to have a car and to have fuel. Fuel was impossible to find. You need to take this fuel also through the boat, through the river. It was very expensive, enormously expensive. And we tried to organize this job. And for example, in the period when we didn't have internet connection and mobile connection, it was possible to use Starlink and generator, and generator also needs fuel. So to deliver this piece of video, 30 seconds, you need to use fuel that costs like a gold. For example, having a big team of journalists in Chernihiv was just impossible and ridiculous. It's impossible to deliver this video. They can take a lot of video, but how to deliver it and how to manage with it. So we, inside our team, we understand, but this video was also very useful, because we gave it not only to Kyiv and to other Ukrainian news programs, but we gave it to the world. We shared this video with the European EBU, yeah? Correct, yeah. With some other also international media. We shared this video with the world, actually, for them to understand how the life in Chernihiv looked like. But for our local audience, it was important to use Telegram. There I can show you before after. That's how much resources we spent to produce, for example, to broadcast, to make TV program. It was like 46% of our normal life, because you need a lot of stuff, a lot of people to work. Yeah. Radio, it was easy to produce. Maybe 3 people worked on radio, and that was quite enough to make radio news and some tokens. Website, social media, both 23%, something like that. But after 24th of February, television became 8%. That's just journalists and cameramen who were working also for social media and for television. Almost 50% social media, 25% website, radio, and a website. So everything, we needed to change everything. Our Telegram grew from 3,000 subscribers to 150,000 subscribers in 5 days. Just imagine people who used to consume information from the TV set, for example, from newspapers, from radio, who are not living in the apartments anymore. They are living in the base ground. They do not have electricity. They have radio, for example, and some telephone. And you just need to understand the atmosphere in the city about the mobile connection. For a mobile station to work, they need electricity. In the other case, you will never have this mobile connection. So some volunteers were walking through the city. They gave some fuel to generators to force this mobile station to work. So that means when the fuel is finished, you do not have mobile connection anymore in this region. But you can find some mobile connection in some other part of the region. So you can just take your bicycle, or you can go by foot through the city looking for information. And people needed this information as food, as water, as medicines. They were looking for a place to find some place to have this internet, to read about whether the president of Ukraine is still in Kyiv, whether the mayor of the city is in Chernihiv, where they can where they can find some food and bread, where they can find water, where they can have some help with the health when they have tooth pain, because no hospitals, only surgeries are working. But they need to find somebody who will help them with the tooth pain, you know? And that's why this simple information they just needed. And they could find this information in our Telegram channel. Actually, we didn't use pictures because it was impossible to download. They have a lack of internet. They need just simple sentences, simple information to survive, to find food, to find some simple stories, and just to understand the situation general situation in Ukraine and in the city, about some shellings and shootings, what is going on. For example, they have heard a big explosion. What is it? Whether some people died or whether who survived. So this information they could get from our Telegram channel, and they were looking for places, some places in Chernihiv, to find this mobile connection and to read. This is the picture for you to understand how people lived in Chernihiv in this period of time. This is a base ground of normal house. They just stayed in this base ground and used radio. For our team, it also became a very important thing to talk to people through the radio as much as possible, because they had these small, simple radios on the batteries, and they could listen to our voices. We also tried to tell them simple information about the situation in Ukraine, situation in Chernihiv, shellings, surviving, what is going on with our army, and then also where to go to get food, water, and something like that, and what is going on in the occupation. Because also Chernihiv was under the siege, but small villages around Chernihiv were under occupation. And to get information from these villages were very difficult. It was the most difficult task. So that's why we organized a remote radio program. It was made also from the apartment of our radio journalist, just from the flat. He was speaking to people, telling these stories, for hours even, just to calm down, to help them, to give this information. And I know a lot of stories from the base grounds in Chernihiv. People were telling that we were listening to you. Thank you very much. This is also some part of the atmosphere of the city. People needed to build toilets on the street because they lived without water and canalization. That means that it was impossible to go to the toilet in the apartment. And everywhere you could see such kind of boxes, because city was under the siege, without water, without electricity. Here you can see some places, there were a lot of places near the shops, for example, near pharmacies, when some people from business just put some generators on the street and give people opportunity to charge their phones. So a lot of such kind of places in Chernihiv. And this is also a picture. People used this very expensive fuel to make cocktails Molotova, because the city was also ready to face this invasion. Actually, after luckily, my region was deoccupied. In a month, we could come back and return to our office and start our regular work, analyzing war crimes, working on some investigations. In a year and a half, we understood that our people were in the situation of burnout. I don't know, maybe for 2 or 3 months we worked without weekends at all, and actually without sleeping sometimes. Maybe 2 hours and 3 hours per day, it was enough to sleep. In a year and a half, we understood that a lot of people were exhausted, very much exhausted. We could see another problem. Journalists were leaving even profession, not just quitting and finding some other place. They tried to find some other profession, maybe in business, making stories for Instagram, I don't know, something else, but not journalism. It was a big problem also for our media. We do not have any university who studied journalism in Chernihiv region. We are regional. We needed to do something. That's why in last year in the autumn we organized some kind of a school for people from different professions, teachers, drivers, some different professions. We organized the school how to work as a journalist. So we had 185 questionnaires. We made 130 interviews, and actually we choose 23 participants to have this training. And nowadays we have actually 3 new journalists in our team from other professions. So that means that you can't give up. You just can't understand my feelings when after a year after this big invasion and the occupation, you can hear, I'm quitting, I'm going, I want to leave, and it makes you so upset. You just need that your audience need this information. You just need that the whole world need information from Ukraine. And we are journalists, we need to do something with it. I just want you to show that you just can't give up. Try to find some other decisions. Try to make quick decisions. You will find it, for sure. You will find some other people who are willing to work. But never give up. Okay, the next slide. Anya, no. I wanted to show you, because nowadays, after this invasion, maybe later I will show you this slide. Actually, after this invasion, nowadays we are working on documentaries and big investigations. And the quality of this investigation is better than before the invasion. We have smaller team, have not very good condition to work because we are too close to the border and we live during shellings and under the pressure all the time. But nowadays I'm really proud of my team because we could produce wonderful documentaries and investigations. And that means that we have a big resource inside. We can use it. And the war really stimulated us to be faster, to make more, to work more. That means that we have this resource and we need to use it. Because nowadays we need to win and we need to be strong and to understand that we can do it. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm going to ask you to join us because I think that's a great opportunity to ask some questions to our guests. Do you have any questions? Yes, please, sir.
Do you cooperate with other broadcasters and share material?
Excuse me, do we have a microphone? Just a second.
Yeah, we can answer. I
Yeah.
understand the question, yeah.
But it's for the recording, so yeah. Just a second. Here you go.
Thank you. First of all, many congratulations on all you do. It's quite amazing. I don't think any of us would ever think that we would end up like this, and so you're doing a great job. Do you cooperate with other broadcasters, like say the BBC where I'm from, or TF1, or Deutsche Welle, places like that? And are you sure that what they're giving you is accurate and to the same standards as your own editorial content?
Yeah, I can answer. Yeah? For the beginning, I have to explain how do we work as the news company. We have our regional broadcasters and we have our national broadcasters in the capital of the country. But the newsroom for all of the news teams is one. So it means that they share all of the content constantly, all of the time. They also publish the content on one website with regional, parts of this website, yes. And we also send a lot of our materials to EBU member, European Broadcasting Union. We share a lot of stories. When we also made one unique archive of war, where we put all of the content that we have right now connected to the war, and all of the European broadcaster members of EBU could use this content for free. So yes, we share everything that we can for all of the world. But at the same time, we also share our materials with commercial media in Ukraine. So this is a regular work for all of the media company, and we sell this content for a huge documentary project that produced to tell the story of Ukraine for the world. Yes, yes, we do it, and we will do it constantly all the time. Yeah.
Yes, the man behind you, yeah.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. I was wondering what you see about being impartial and objective when your country is at war.
What do you mean? Can you explain? Maybe some situation.
Yeah, is it possible for you to, or do you publish news about where you're critical against your army and so on?
You can, as chief editor, she can tell you all of the inside work. As a media manager, I can say that we haven't any censorship in our company. So all the responsibility not on us as media managers, but for chief editors. So floor is yours.
We are working on investigations about corruption also and about politics, for example. Actually, we do not have some kind of censorship, I mean, among the company. That's why we understand that this is very important to work on investigation and to give people information about our powers, about our authorities. That's why it's not a problem. But I understand what are you talking about. During the war, there are some rules you need to follow. It's not just completely, you get some information and you can write it. For example, if we are talking about moving some armed forces, for example, they are moved from other, that's impossible to print about it. Why? Because you can you can give this harm, for example, because Russians can read the article, they can understand that somebody is moving, and they will shoot directly the station, for example. Soldiers can be inside. So we have some rules about how to write about shellings. We can't print pictures in the first hour because it can help our enemy to fight us. Actually, you know, it's a big difference. For example, Japan used to work with the nature, with some diseases, with the nature, with the tsunami and something like that. But we are fighting with the enemy who can read, who can analyze some texts and video and pictures. And the first thing for us is to survive and to save our country, to save Ukraine. It's also an aim of journalists. We can't give our country to the enemy, and that's the aim. So we have some rules, but they are quite understandable for our journalists. It's a kind of agreement We do not print these pictures in an hour, for example. We do not share video in an hour. We do not share information about some armed forces. But when we are talking about, for example, some situations about corruption in the army, so we are talking about it freely.
And maybe one more remark about this. We still do not know all the official losses of Ukrainian army. And I think that it is right now impossible to count. And we have some doubts about the information that we have from official authorities about the Russian losses as well, because it's impossible to count. And it's something that is clear for us and maybe for our audiences, but it's something that we decide do not do right now. But there will be a time for all of this question as well. So right now we are thinking about the security. And another thing about these pictures from the place of bombing. Russian uses tactic of twice bombing the same places. So we can't go, even if we want to come to be the first person on the ground, we will think twice, is it okay to send our journalists on this place, because we know that they will bomb this place again in 1 hour or half an hour. So we're thinking about the security of our teams and about people's life for the beginning. But we have a list of questions that we would like to ask after the war finished. Yeah.
Any other question? No? All right.
One more.
And the man behind you as well.
The investigations you are publishing, how is the audience reaction towards them if you're talking about corruption and so on?
We have a different international investigative team in Ukraine right now. They are granted by international partners and they are very famous. And we have a partnership with them about all of their materials. So we publish them and we report them and broadcast them on our platforms. So we can say about the answer from audience about the ratings on TV station, and it's very popular. And we are talking about the comments. But the documentaries and movies that produced by regional teams is amazing work with millions of views. So how the audience react for your work?
Actually, the last one movie and documentary was made about the drama theater. Chernihiv drama theater was ruined by the missile, Russian missile, in September last year. And the problem was that inside the theater, our authorities and army decided to organize some kind of meeting with producers of drones. And Russians found out about it, and they sent missile. But all the people who died around the theater were civilians. Just 0 people from militaries, only civilians. People died, and more than 200 people got injured, because it was a weekend. It was just center of the city. So we made this investigation not only about a war crime, but about some rules in Ukraine, how to organize our regular life, how to survive, living and being under these active war actions, actually. So, you know, Ukrainians have special mentality. I don't know whether are you too close to Ukrainians. They are full of freedom. It's impossible for them to get like, do not think about it, do not speak about it. That's impossible to do with Ukrainians. Ukrainians are full of freedom. They want to talk about corruption. They want to ask questions to authorities. They can ask questions to Zelensky, just direct questions. They want to ask direct questions to some other politicians. They are not afraid because they are. That's why these people are communicating with us as a media in such way. They can say, you are not right. You are not writing a lot about these politicians. Please do it. So Ukrainians are quite active and their position is active. I love it, the Ukrainians, for that, very much. For this position, I'm in love with these people.
You will always have a comments like, you don't have to make a report about this place because Russian will bomb this place. Otherwise, you have a comment, you don't have to silence about this place because people have to know what is going on in Ukraine during the war. So you will have a lot of different comments. But all of the decision has to be made by chief editors and journalists. Just remember about this first need, to secure your people, to secure your country as well.
Thank you. And the last question, yeah, gentleman behind you. Yeah.
Thank you for everything that you shared. You spoke about the psychology of journalism a little bit in the beginning, how it was difficult or impossible to predict whom would stay, whom would go. I would like to hear more about that. Did you discover tools during these times, these years, of how to strengthen the cooperation within the newsroom, within your company?
I can share my experiences. I was a lead person for the Reserve Center, and some of the journalists and producers from all of the regional affiliates came to Lviv to help to make this new, national system of broadcasting. And you know, I met them on the corridor and I said, okay, what can you do? And he said, I made a report. Okay, so you will be editor. And something like this. Can you do this? Yes, I will do it. Can you do this? Yes, I will do it. So it was very open communication with people. Everyone who come to Lviv as a resource center would like to help somehow. So they try to do anything that they can do. Some people, some journalists, they just manage to find a way how to equip people with hot food, for example, because it was also difficult. Some people find some traditional Ukrainian clothes for TV presenters. So, and all of this, how to say, uniting feelings, it was something that were able to help us to survive during the first months. But after this, you have to recognize that people are not able to stay in this condition for a longer period of time. So you have to find psychologists for them, and you have to start the very adult discussion with these people that you have to protect your psychological well-being as well. So we try to find different ways how to say about this. We share our examples that all of us have psychologists, we have to work with them, we have to tell someone about all of the troubles and all of the pressure. And somehow we try to change this culture of well-being inside of the company. Because before the war, it was pretty regular that we burn people, that you have to work every day. But now we have to save people because there are crucial problems with educated and people who can work as a journalist in Ukraine right now, because a lot of educated people are abroad in Poland as well. So this is a continually, constantly work with all of the team. I think this will never end. And as a media manager, as a member of the managing board, this is one of the priority how we have to work, where we have to pay attention. And maybe
we are facing a new wave of aggression from Russia Federation nowadays, near my border, near my city also. Sumy, Chernihiv, Kharkiv also. Actually, we have some kind of strange war in the border with Russia nowadays in Chernihiv region, because Russian soldiers are coming through forests and rivers, and they can just sit near the road from one side and another and just shoot civilians' car or military cars, and a lot of people can die on these roads actually. The point is that we are facing new wave of aggression. And people in my team are also in some kind of тревога. Anxiety, yeah. And they need to think what to do. Because nowadays, our journalists realize and understand that journalists are like the aim. Not the aim even to kill, but to torture. And these tortures, I talked to my colleagues who came through tortures. For me, it's better to die under shelling, not to get in the prison, not to get in the prison. And my journalists really realize this situation. In the case the city is occupied, journalists are the aim to find, to torture, and to force them to work on their power. And they will use everything to do it, everything. That's why it's really scary for people, because they could listen to these stories, they could realize, they could see the real picture of aggression. So I tried to talk to people every day, every week, to talk to everybody, to listen to their stories about their fears. But I understand that in this very moment of new wave of aggression, I will need to have these quick decisions, because people will react in different way. So it's impossible to predict and to make normal plan what to do.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing and for your brave work, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're gonna, that's the right reaction. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. We should all stand up, maybe.
Oh.